Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight from the great Midwest of RDB, and we are going to be discussing a 1990 sequel, Barbarian Queen 2, Electric Boogaloo, who, something, whatever, kind of Empire
The
Strikes
the
Back-ish.
the Empress Strikes Back.
Yeah, whatever. So, RDV, this is a tough watch because I reviewed the first one and I watched it, and by the time the early 90s rolled around, Sword and Sorcery was dead. DOA, kill it. So this movie tries to hit all the right notes. It's got long flowing robes and boobs and torture racks and boobs and children that double cross you and boobs and rape scenes and boobs and bad archery. That was the other thing I noticed, and boobs. So
It's the same as the first one to me. It's the same kind of acting, but even the main actress, Lana Clarkson, she her acting's so bad that she comes off believable to me.
we talked at the end of the Barbarian Queen, the first movie that we reviewed here on the Xtreme Movie Show a few weeks back, when we were doing our sword sorcery films before we got into the Halloween type films, about how her backstory was interesting because obviously a very beautiful woman here, and
Yeah,
how Phil Spector whacked her. Basically, now he's a nutcase, and we didn't dive deep in it because we're not that kind of a conspiracy show. We're an extreme film
no,
show, and it's unfortunate because you take a B or C level type movie like this that's basically a glorified TV movie or direct to video VHS at the time, not even DVD.
yeah. This
And
is
it is what it is. It's not
yeah.
high end or anything like that. My problem was that it just felt like it lacked a little punch and steam. And it's not horrible, but it's just sort of there. So it's not
It's
something I'll ever watch again unless I'm paid to. But
the way I would relate this to is those who watch like the Beastmaster TV shows on what was it, the WB back in the day,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
All your yeah. So basically, it shows a lot of nudity, like the first one we did. So you're still getting sword and sorcery. You're getting pretty much nobody actors in this. It's a straight to video movie. Never even went to the theater. Just the first one. The first one never even went to, as far as I know. Actually, the first one you can go into a theater.
yeah, absolutely. You could
Oh
definitely.
yeah, limited, very limited.
Yep.
But this one went straight to VHS. I wanted to say straight to DVD because that was a big thing for me growing up, but I forgot there was straight to VHS before that. Yeah, so I can't fault it saying it's like I liked movies like I liked Beastmaster. I liked what was the other one? There was Beastmaster, and I think there was one other one. It was kind of like a sword and sorcery.
There's a ton of them.
Yeah, but the
Cold
one the
Conqueror, Conan. I mean, obviously a grade
yeah.
A film.
So the big thing about this, if you're a fan of Deathstalker, which a lot of people were because it's a classic, you saw this, and then you saw Barbarian Queen, and then so Barbarian Queen 2. They were all just kind of like this Argentinian, English movies. They were kind of like the knockoffs, but these were basically female warriors instead. And I gotta say though, for what it is, it wasn't that bad. The villains here are villains.
yes,
They are horrible.
yes.
Even the little girl on here is like, and so annoying. I was waiting for her to like, come on, someone just kill her. She gets her just desserts towards the end.
She does. I
But
have to agree with you on that. And
so
you raised a real interesting point there about the fact that there's very few films where women are the fighters.
yeah, yeah, and this movie obviously recycles scenes from the first movie, or at least sets. The
Oh
torture
yeah,
rack was in the first movie. They use it again in this one too as well. It said, and going into this, like you can tell, like I didn't think it was gonna be an epic movie, because it's a sequel and it's going straight to DVD or VHS. Despite that though, I thought it was like I said, a lot of tongue in cheek jokes in here. You got the typical fairy tale prince guy who she doesn't like at first, but because he realizes he has a moral things, and like of course there's the worst part of this movie is the magic scepter thing. It was so stupid. It was a plot device. That's what it was. But overall though, you're getting Amazonic Lana Clarkson, who basically goes around and like just kicks ass. So I'm coming. Like I said, I knew what was coming into this movie. You're gonna have Lana Clarkson. You're gonna see nudity. You're gonna see her tits. You're gonna see some goofs. You're gonna see bad acting. It's not. I almost want to say the only thing missing from this movie was the soft core like porn thing. Although she didn't make love to her boyfriend, but like I was expecting like like hey, where's the actual straight up porn? Because this pretty much movie was close to that. But with like I said, it's not a strong story. All it is, evil king wants to basically overthrow.
Yep.
He basically the king was murdered. Her father was murdered, or at least they don't know or not. But and he like, wants to basically throw a coup. He wants to take over his spoiled daughter, and stuff. Wants to be queen, and it said like it's you got Lana Clarkson, who was from basically her character was a princess, joined in with a bunch of rebels, peasants, and led an uprising. And, it's that simple. If you're expecting more than that, I think you pretty much will be disappointed. Like going into this, I figured it was going to be like a very B C level movie, and I'm okay with that because maybe it's because I like boobs. I don't know. It's like it wasn't that bad of a story. It wasn't offensive, and it wasn't full of like trash because people are afraid of feminist movies
Well,
today.
one of the things that when I saw this movie, it made me want to kind of bring up here is, we sometimes talk about themes of films and comparing the stuff. And this was a 1990 film. Like I say, by this time things were dead. DVDs weren't quite out yet. Certainly not mainstream. And recently over on Netflix, I'd started watching a documentary, and because I believe it or not, I do fish around for unique things to watch and stuff. And watching one called Killer Sally on Netflix, and what it is, it's about a woman who, in the mid '90s, shot her Mr. Olympia wannabe boyfriend, due to abuse or whatever. So they're interviewing her and all that. And one of the subplots that, honestly, that I found intriguing was something she did for money, and it wasn't sex necessarily. You're in a situation where you're watching something like this, and these types of productions, like for Netflix or anybody, are super cheap. Therefore, they can be lucrative and profitable. It's only like, I
Yep.
think, 3 episodes. And what she would do back then, and this is VHS time, where things were not as instantaneously connected as they are today. Um, she was a bodybuilder herself, decent physique and all that. But of course, she was not somebody training for Mr. Olympia like he was and all that too. And despite being beaten on and everything else there too. And this guy had a bad temper and they married and had kids. She made a lot of money, definitely by early '90s standards. By instead of being in movies like what we're seeing here with Barbarian Queen, because she figured out that, hey, somebody wanted to wrestle her and film it, and there was a guy that did it where he'd say, okay, I pay these women a couple $100, we make a small VHS movie, and I sell those VHS tapes, and she makes some money. So you're like, okay, that's fine. But then she got an idea and said, I'm gonna do it on my own. So she kind of made her own, and she was in the Marines, I believe. So she's got some footage on a base out in California, I think, or Arizona, wherever it was at. And so she started doing herself. So guess what? She found this little niche market. And again, going back to the sex aspect here, is that there were plenty of people that she talked about, matter of factly, that would say, yeah, they would fly me out to Wall Street. A guy would pay me $300-400 an hour to wrestle him for an hour or two. There was no sex involved. They never propositioned me. A lot of the times guys were really clean and neat about it. She goes, it was just a thing for it. And it's not that she talks about like she's necessarily proud, but she found a way to utilize what assets she had to make good money at the time. And I'm finding myself going, holy crap, this is kind of compelling television, even though it sounds a little weird. So, kind of changing course here about Barbarian Queen 2. This is a sequel that in no way should have been made to me, but the first one was almost okay enough where you understand that it was a cheap film and it gives you everything you talked about, especially the flesh. And you don't have those kind of movies. And you had some back then, but not a lot, and only a few good mainstream ones. So I kind of liked what you said about it being, it's passable, I guess. It's certainly better than some of the crap that's out there today that's not going to piss you off, but I'm not saying it's good. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to see a little TNA and people dressing up in period pieces. We like it now, like in everything that's, from Lord of the Rings to Game of Thrones and whatnot. So it's still there. It's just we don't get the blatant nudity part about it, which is not a big deal. And I'm kind of surprised now that it seems to be a big deal when back then it wasn't, right? So you're right about all those things you said. And I just wonder, what? If Canon Films, one of our favorite groups of, like, along with Hammer Films here on the Xtreme Movie Show, if Canon Films had gotten a hold of this, put a little juice into it like they do with their sequels, the most infamous one being Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo, which capitalized on the breakdancing craze after Breaking. I'm thinking we could have had something here because, again, to me, this movie lacked a little bit of oomph. It has all the parts to it. It
Yep.
just seems like it's a plate of ingredients not fully cooked necessarily. It
So
needs a little more cooking.
I gotta point out this movie is really good. It's kind of hard to find. I found an online copy,
Yes.
not through legal means, because if I going through legal
Of course,
means,
it's by legal means.
well, I'm just saying if you want to go through legal means, the DVD is $90 because they're out of print. This movie is so rare, hard to find. So through Amazon, I'm looking at some of the copies are from $90 to $60 to $229.
Yeah.
Because this is a very hard to find movie. So, like I said, I found it through non-legal means now.
It's on the Internet Archive here
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
United States, which is free. Some people, of course, post it on YouTube, which, depending on what region you are, what
You can
blockers and
find,
stuff you have, you
yeah,
may be able to find it. And yeah, we obviously, it can be found by other methods.
yeah. Like I said, my main thing I go through is through Vudu. I go through Amazon to see if it's there, even through YouTube a lot of times, and I could not find it. I found it through a website that had it. But yeah, like I said, this is if you're going in thinking this movie is going to be great, you're bet. I mean, it's not going to be. You're probably going to be let down. That being said, I went in and thinking like, okay, this is going to be kind of bad, kind of rough. That being said, I watched it at 1.225 speed because I thought it actually fit the speed for a while because I was late. I wanted to get done with the review. But I gotta say though, watching it at 1.25 speed, the fastest speed on the thing, it actually was actually good. Holy crap! It wasn't like they were. The bad thing is weird. It's so weird when people make movies where really really slow, deliberate pace, and then you speed up. It's like normal pace. It was weird, but overall though, like I said, you're going in for this. It's like you're gonna watch this movie. So if you're, I read comic books like I've read some Xena Warrior Princes. I read Sonya and all stuff. I know what I'm going into. So it may be good or may be bad. Overall, I give this a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, because it's slightly
It's
above
average.
average,
Yeah, yeah.
and you have to know what you're going into. And I think one thing we've never really talked too much here, despite all the different films and television shows we've covered, is that what's realistic expectations for going into stuff, and staying away mostly from comic book type stuff myself, and you guys handling it, you and Professor Pixel, I should say. It's interesting because, and as I mentioned before about the Xtreme Movie Show, I'm more Gen X, you're more Gen Y, he's more Gen Z. And like
Mhm.
with someone like Lorenzo, who here is in chat, obviously has a interesting collection of people that he follows too. We get a lot of comic book crossover type people, so I usually defer to like you and Pixel and some of the other people that are a part of our channel and join in about how would this be received, because obviously Conan goes back a long way, right? We've
Yeah.
talked about Creep Show and a few other things too that were either graphic novels, a limited series, or like the John Carpenter graphic novels. This is the type of film series movie that you go, there's something kind of here. It's probably just not executed as good as it could be because, like you say, it's average to above average. It's not where you're going to walk out and be like, fuck yeah, like Top Gun or something, but you're watching it going at sword and sorcerer. I want to just be distracted by a little bit. And just as low budget as it was, maybe if it was just executed a little better rather than people holding the arrows in their chest like when they got shot, or some of those scenes where you get stabbed and you can clearly see it
Mhm.
going past the person like they're holding it. Little things like that can add up a little bit because
You don't.
even as bad as the fights are, you can still get hypnotized if it's outside, the sun's out, or whatever the weather is. There's animals, there's fires, there's all this natural stuff, right? The stuff you and I have always talked
Mhm.
about, practical effects. That can really do a lot to kind of just take you away from not seeing cars or electronics and everything, too. So you can easily do it, I think, if you're committed to
I
it.
want
It just
to.
felt like they pumped this one out real
I
quick.
want to point out though that people who are here like who are upset because there's nudity in the film, it actually makes sense because, well, okay. So when it comes to villains, they capture a beautiful female. The villains are not be like, oh, I am not gonna do anything with her because I'm respectful. It makes sense. It's a barbarian time. evil is evil. They don't give a care. They'll kill your granny right in front of you, and then assault you. It's and I love that's what I love about these films because the villains are villains. They're not the I'll get you, but then I'll leave you to die and walk away. No, these ones are like, I'm getting hands on. I'm gonna freaking hurt you. Like the torture racket here, they brought it back, but I like this time instead. They tilted it forward and they revealed the spikes in the floor. And every time he jolted, they turn the wheel. She got closer and closer, lunged towards the spikes on the ground.
Yep.
I was like, that's kind of cool. So they recycled some of the sets. I like the fact that they actually improved it a little bit. Now the only problem with this movie is that it's not really a sequel, even though they call it Barbarian Queen 2. I guess they hinted at that she's supposed to be the incarnation of the first woman, reincarnation, because the first movie with Lana Clarkson was a different name, different character. Right. So it does not connect at all anyway to the first movie. So, but like I said, this is a movie that was made in Argentina, and shipped to shipped to the United States, and it was actually done in '89, and then they didn't get done until with pictures and all that stuff until 1990. So that being said, though, like I said, I hope that the new Red Sonja movie, actually the guys people, and I hope they're not prudes. That's the one thing I hate is when you don't understand what a character is, when you make it all about I guess the new woke policies. I guess you'd rather focus more on about someone's sexuality than you care about the actual plot. That's my fear. Is they'll look at this and be like, oh, this is smut. We're not going to do anything like this. Not that saying I need to see Red Sonja's tits, but I'm just saying
we're going to be elevated.
There should be villagers. They're being pillaged. They should be getting raped because that's what bad people do. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying.
Well, if you're bad,
you're bad.
How do you establish that they're bad? Because when we see the bad guys here, they're not big dudes. And the king who just was horribly acted, the main bad guy, he was like, "You will obey me and follow me." It's like, oh my God, what's this guy's horrible. But the point is you don't get this big backstory about what a badass he was or how he killed 1,000 slaves or anything dramatic or like that. Hell no, this is not the kind of movie. They show you exactly what you mean, the very base dark things that happen when you have all these feuding tribes, and it's rape and it's pillage. What does it mean? You plunder them, you kill the males, you rape the women, you take them with you. You conscript the young ones.
Like I said,
there you go.
I would love it. If I can't have you, well, here goes your friend. I just chopped his head off, or I ran my sword through your friend's gut. You can watch her bleed out, and then I want a revenge story. That's what this is. This is the revenge story, just like the first one, and that's why it does so well.
But you know how it's really not an '80s movie? Seriously, because I'm half joking, but I'm half serious. Well, there's no montage in it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, the other thing too is I kept thinking is this guy the main guy? Her lover in this, or Orion,
Dude, bro.
Yeah. I kept thinking is this guy wearing blue jeans?
I know. God,
he look like blue. The pants look weird, but he wasn't wearing jeans though. It was wearing some kind of leather or something I can't remember what it was, but it was
in the late '80s. You had a dramatic change in the hip clothing style that kind of, in the 70s went away from disco and punk, kind of melded, and then you had nylons and you had denim, and you had this really great variety of stuff. I'm not going to say the hairstyles are their best, but they were very iconic. But then by the late 90s too, when you had the whole New Jack music thing come down here to Florida, and a lot of hip hop stuff becoming a lot more mainstream rather than underground, dance music and techno was starting to really take off. And so you really had for a year or two this kind of, I don't know what the hell you want to call it, convoluted mess of styles before you got into basically the grunge, which defined most of the 90s. In this movie, you clearly could see it because it's like, okay, she's got a modern hairstyle, but she's wearing a piece of shit leather, kind of thing. Or, hey, wait a minute, dude, you're coming out in some sort of Dickies looking pants. It's like, what's going on? Your hair's too smooth. You're out of place, bro. I mean, he's no Adrian's Med, but then few are, but he just, he was annoying to me. And they made Sweet, Sweet Love on the Grass. Big deal. Who cares?
So I do what I gotta say about this movie. The pros of the pros in this. I mean, there are some cons, but the pros in this, that opening shot though, is in Ireland. It's Ireland.
Yeah.
The way they show everything here. The scenery is great on this. We get mud wrestling. Oh my god! I didn't expect.
We do. We get boob mud wrestling.
Boobs are exposed, and then next minute covered, and then exposed again. I was like, did somebody do that on purpose? Or it's like they just not. It's like, but overall, I love the taglines of this movie. She's wild, she's sexy, she's the Barbarian Queen. Like that's. Can you imagine if that was a tagline today? Like Red
She's
Sonja,
no Mississippi Queen, but I understand. That's an old
like I
reference.
said, the only thing that was missing from this was people smoking.
Let me throw this at you for one of my final thoughts and observations. It is what it is. That's fine. Not every movie is going to be an A+. We know that. And we try not to bitch too hard about how bad something is. Once in a while I will, but we try to stay out of what everybody's doing and copying each other on YouTube. But I will say this. Talked about how this should have been a canon film where they really upped the ante, like Break Into Electric Boogaloo. And that's kind of the whole joke.
Where's the fireballs?
Well, no.
Explosions.
It made me think, instead of Canon getting a hold of it, what's the genius behind Breakin' 2? Okay. The genius wasn't Canon, really capturing stuff really quick and turning it, because this guy doing it down here in Chile or wherever it was, Argentina, he did a good job of doing that. But here's the thing. They should have had a dance off, right?
Yep.
Because we have not even talked yet about all the wonderful dance movies out there and how you get in somebody's face like you got served or Break In or Step Up or whatever. And that's coming here on the Xtreme Movie Show very soon. But I kept thinking to myself, man, if this only had like a musical number or some sort of weird dance off, or like, I don't know, a Renaissance fair or something. But they kept trying to like hang somebody in this movie in the torture rack. And I kept getting distracted because I kept going, okay, we got stuff that sounds evil with the multiple attempted rapes and tons of boobies, yet here they are rolling around in the grass, and then there's mud wrestling. And so I don't know. It's probably better if you're under the influence. So I will say it falls in that category.
And coming back on the people who said like, "Oh, this is like Deathstalker," well, it's written by the same guy.
Yep.
The guy who wrote it. The guy also wrote Rainbow Bright and Care Bears. Like I said. So basically, it's Howard R. Cohen, who passed away in 1999. But he was a writer. He wrote for. He basically went from working from on an alternative humor magazine called Adavark in 1996. Then is a party joke editor for Playboy magazine. So I like reading about the writers sometimes, because sometimes the writers are actually really cool writers, and then sometimes the writers are hacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, the way when this came out, there were this Howard Cohen had this movie. If they would have tweaked a little bit more, made it a little more serious, up the ante, I think you could have had like I would love to have. Wouldn't you like Red Sonja? The flaw with Red Sonja, they're trying to make it like Conan, but they brought Conan in. Like I just say, like this is a movie like where I wish she didn't have a love interest. That would have been much better for me. And having it be much more serious, much more fighting prowess. Like I want people just kicking ass, and that's one of the reasons why I like Xena much better, because Xena was just all about her kicking ass for the very first few seasons before they did everything else. But despite that, this is a straight to DVD or straight to home VHS, movie. And for what it's worth, I mean, I would, dude, if I were still a Blockbuster, I'd be checking this out. I'd be renting this. I'd be getting Deathstalker. I'd be getting all these VHSs off the wall.
And in a way, I almost wish it was a bit more adult-like rather than juvenile, in a sense that when we reviewed this, we'd also reviewed Gore, because that was our first official entry into Oliver Reed. And I liked how our Gen Z guy, Professor Pixel, brought up the interest level he had, because he didn't realize that this was, causing commotion about its sexual themes and how there's like a subculture out there for it too. And I said,
yeah,
bro, there's all these things that come up here too. And, he just, I guess, didn't realize that things like that exist, and they do. And this movie here, it's juvenile enough where it's like, if my teenage son or daughter saw it and they saw that, they'd be laughing at the nudity rather than going, oh my God, this is, because it really is that tame. And that's the word I have for it.
And that's the thing, you see,
and that's not a bad thing.
All you see is boobs. You don't see anything else. You don't see full frontal. Full frontal was actually in the first movie, if anything, I believe. But like I said, if you like this, check this movie out. The first one is on Prime for free, Prime Video, if you have an account with Amazon. Same with Deathstalker, which is a future movie we'll be reviewing. Like I said, try to watch these. I say watch these movies before they go away. That's my thing too, is because a lot of movies are getting harder and harder to find, especially these straight VHS movies, because they're not as popular, or the cult is there, and it's not as big as it used to be, because most people know, well, older age, people do end up biting the dust. That's the way it is, and things get lost to culture. Lots of time. So
I do wish there was more of these, but they're
yeah,
not, unfortunately, out there. Just like
I
science
want,
fiction, they don't make money generally.
like the Roger Corman movies, man. I want to watch them. I know they're gonna be bad. I've watched the Fantasy Four, but I want to watch the other ones because I know it's like it,
It serves its purpose.
yeah, it's something you should watch at least once. And I say this movie, at least watch this once. Watch the first movie, watch this one. You can watch them whatever order you want to, because like I said, it's nothing to do with the first movie, other than that they use the same set for the torture rack. And they said that Lana Clarkson, great, awesome.
Yeah, it's worth watching for her.
The villain in this, what was his name? He was Horfrax, played by Roger Cudney. He basically is an Argentinian actor and all that stuff. This was his only, I guess, English speaking movie.
Yep.
The guy just looks so. I kept thinking, why does that guy look like Robert De Niro, or not Robert De Niro, but the other one? What was the guy's?
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino. No, what was?
I don't know who you're talking about.
I'm trying,
bro.
and
he just looks like he's going to stab you with his eyes.
In True Grit, the remake. With
I don't know, off the top of my head.
Oh my gosh, we have to look it up. But he has that face. He looks like the evil bad guy.
He's no Jack Palance though. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Barbarian Queen 2, Electric Boogaloo, if you will. Check it out or not. It's one of those kind of films here too. But Sunday night should be Gore 2, I believe. We're doing all three of us just because we can, and I'm looking forward to seeing Jack Palance in his many, many wonderful hats and there. And might have to do a little robe comparison too, because I'm the fashionista here on the Xtreme Movie Show, and Pixel's the young 20-something who knows nothing but likes to say a lot, and he's actually really good at it too. So it's interesting always getting his takes, and of course RDV here being my co-guest here tonight. Thanks guys for watching, listening. For Lorenzo popping in, Ed, yo, HCTR, told you 7 billion,
sorry.
bro.
Robert Duvall. That's like I get that.
Robert Duvall's a great actor though.
I know, that's what I get.
But he doesn't look scary, right? Not Robert Duvall.
No, but and as in True Grit, this guy he's the guy. He's the creep. Like I said, he's the one that's like, I want to look at your boobs. Oh, they're disgusting, but yet they're beautiful. I'm thinking this guy is just sadistic. I mean, it's not as bad as Jack Palance and Hawk the Slayer, but I mean, it's like on that level of creepy though for me.
I will say this about him, and I'll close. It was this movie. He was scarier than anything in Barbarian, the recent one too. So have a good night, guys. As always, remember, stay extreme.
Later.
Jack Palance.